Hello everyone, welcome back to Chess on Fire. Today I'll be covering something special, the Bishop and Checkmate. Just a quick update. I am currently participating in the local youth championship, and this is the day before the first round. So I decided I'm going to use this as a warm-up to share some knowledge with you guys and just get a hang of it. And starting from tomorrow, I'll be covering the games, and don't forget to drop in and check the games out. I'm pretty sure it's going to be very interesting. The format is 90 minutes plus 30 seconds per game, which means the game quality is going to be super high. So don't forget to take a look at it. Now let's start. So in this video, my goal is to show you the checkmate in 10 minutes and guarantee that you understand how to checkmate with the bishop and knight. And then we will challenge Stockfish. But of course, I should mention that Stockfish is generally not the sturdiest defender. So the best way still is to find a friend and practice it out. Let's start. So if you start looking at this position, it looks pretty complex because different from any other type of checkmate. If you don't know any other type of checkmate, I'm glad to show you as well. But the different thing is that the bishop can only control the light squares, and occasionally the knight can also only control light squares. So the challenge is generally dark squares. Of course, if your bishop is on the dark squares, then the challenge is the light squares. Our task is to use the knight and the king to successfully cover the crucial dark squares to ultimately lead to a win. Now, here's my claim. I'm going to claim to you that if the king ends up on the edge of the board, something like this, or at a corner, something like this, then the king is checkmated. Now, of course, this only includes the side where the bishop's diagonal is on. So this is not considered a corner, but this is considered an edge. So basically, if we mark the entire board, it's going to look like this. And essentially, I'm claiming that if the king ends up on any of these squares, it's going to lose. I will show you why this is true very soon. But now, if we follow this logic, we can consider how to shrink the space for the king to survive. Now, I will show you this step by step. I won't tell the entire thing at the beginning of the video. And the general idea is first to surround the opponent king with your pieces. And a rule of thumb is to bring in the slowest moving pieces. So in sequence, that will be king, knight, bishop. Now let's say in this position, the opponent plays this. You then bring in the knight, get it as close as possible, just put it in the face of your opponent. Let's say he comes back, then we will be developing the bishop as well. You notice that the bishop, generally, you do not need to place it right in the face of your opponent. You just need to put the diagonal in the face of your opponent, if you understand what I mean. So now, if you look at the king, surprisingly the king only has one square to go, which generally means you did a good job on limiting its squares. Let's say he goes here. Now, let's go back to the theory that if these squares are covered, then the king is dead. A crucial addition to this rule is that you would like to cut off some diagonals over here. Now, of course, it's easy to cut a diagonal with the bishop, but the question would be how to cut off this diagonal. That will be the king and knight's job. At the moment, the king is controlling this square, the knight is controlling these squares, but the opponent king can always escape here. So you did not do a great job on covering these four squares, which is generally what you need to cover. The question then is how? First, let's say he goes like this. Now we go back with the bishop f7, he goes back to c6. What to do here? Now, a commonly seen pattern is putting the knight behind the king like this. The trick here is not using the knight to control these squares. The trick is actually the knight has prospects over here on c2 and f5. These squares then allow the control of these four squares. And combined with the king, that forms a 5-square wall, which is always enough, as long as your king is placed in the center. So here, the next move would be knight e3. And let's say if king d6, then we give a check. You see, now the king has to move back, and you successfully took away all of those squares. Then he needs to move this way. And when he goes all the way over here, you just try to trap it. For instance, let's say he, in this position, let's say we go here. Because we want to take away this square as well. So you go there, controlling that. The king does not want to tread onto the corner. Remember this rule. I will explain why very soon. Let's say he goes here. Then he continues to take away space like that. Again, he does not want to go there. He does not want to go anywhere over here. This is controlled, so king b4 only move. Now again, you go bishop c4. Very simple. You notice that this time, the king is entirely cut off, so it is then forced to move onto the edge. Then your king will then catch up, and then it's just the topic of how to kill the king when the king is on the edge. So, up till this point, you should have already understood how this is done. Well, this is very simple. You should also remember that this triangle is forbidden for the king, not the triangle, these edges, and the corner is also forbidden for the king. Now with the knight and the king arranged like this, then you would get a beautiful map of this. So now these 5 squares are also controlled. So essentially, if you look at this, the king only has these 3 squares to survive in. And as long as you take away 1 square, like with the bishop, the king must move the other way. Then you continue taking away. And then let's say he treads onto here, then you continue taking away this final square of survival, and the king is dead. This is just how simple the bishop and knight's mate is. I swear to you that nobody on the internet has explained it like this, but if you look at it, this is super clean, super easy. So let's go over some key pointers again, and then I'll show you how to mate when the king is on the edge or the corner. So first, bring in the pieces. King first, then knight, then bishop. That's step 1. Step 2, grab the diagonal. Remember, you're trying to grab this diagonal, not something like this diagonal. The difference here is this diagonal is directly pushing the king towards this corner, while this diagonal will be pushing the king towards this corner, which is the wrong color. You will very soon learn why this is the wrong color as well. Now, of course, the next step would be to cover the second diagonal. If we call this the first diagonal, then this is the second diagonal, this is the third diagonal. Then you take away the squares on the third diagonal one by one. That's step 4. One by one, one by one. Then the king must go on to the edge, and you're winning. Very simple. Now, of course, let me show you how to win when the king is on the edge. Let's start with something not very hard. This is a classic model of the bishop and knight's mate, and you have probably seen this on the internet as well. You generally just need to remember the moves here. The idea, again, is still taking away squares of the king, and keeping the king on the edge and ultimately pushing it over here. Now first let me show you something wrong, which would be pushing the king towards this side. This would be very wrong indeed, because if you look at it, let's say you put knight here, go there, we might go here, there, check, here, and then you will realize you have walked straight into a trap. If you're to move the knight and prepare for a checkmate, then the king would be stalemated. And if you're to move the bishop, you're never going to checkmate the king. So basically, if you walk the king over into this corner, it's not going to be a checkmate. Very unfortunate. So the correct way would be to go this side. So the first move, bishop h7. His only move would be to go here. Then you continue taking away squares and keeping him on the edge. Now he goes there. We go here. Now, remember that I mentioned this is also considered the deadly zone of the king because it is a corner. Now, I didn't really explain why this is a corner and why it's different from other squares, right? Let me show you. King c7. You go here. It looks like the king is escaping, but no. Bishop d3. The king is out of squares. King c7, for instance. Bishop e4. The king is again out of squares. Now, the king is forced to go back to the edge. So this is why I claim that these squares are also deadly zones. And we call it the corner, but it's actually just going to end the king up on the edge. Now, after king d8, we repeat the pattern. You see, this is exactly the same thing as bishop h7 here. It just shifted entirely. Now let me show you something different. After here, we already shown how to deal with the king b8. What about king d8? Then we go knight b7. Check, he goes here, only move there, we follow up, he goes there, there. I hope you recognize this. Let's find it. Bishop f7 here, bishop h7 there, all the same thing. Now he goes into the corner, and then we just need to do a really simple checkmate pattern. We just move the knight here, move the bishop here, when the king is in the corner. How? Knight c5, over, check, there, there, over. Now, of course, sometimes you might not end up so ideal as after you play knight c5, the king is on b8. It is entirely possible that the king is on a8. What to do? Well, just wait a move. You bring the bishop back, he goes there, check, there, checkmate. So now I prove to you why the edge and the corner is deadly for the black king as long as the white king has followed up. And you might be wondering, well, we started off with this basic position. How do you convert this into the basic position? Well, essentially you don't. Why do I say so? The idea here is just to follow up with king c3, and then when he goes here, our task is just to foresee where the king is trying to escape. He is trying to go this way. So we simply prepare for that by playing knight d6. And the key is, after king a5, you could go there. And the king is essentially trapped in a box. King a4 back. Now let's say we go here. If king a3, I will then mention what to do. On the other hand, if king a5, then we just try to catch up with the king. So after king a6, we might play bishop e4, keep control of the king. He goes back. Let's say bishop c6, waiting a move. He goes up, then we follow in with the king. If he goes like there, we go there. If that, let's say king a5. Then we just wait. He goes there, 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 check. Oh, not exactly. Let's say he goes there, then we can control the king, there, check. If the king back, that's checkmate. Kind of a strange checkmate. So if king the other way, then we follow up with the king. He goes there, we follow up with the king. He goes there, we follow up with the bishop. King a7, then we just push him into the corner, and this everybody recognizes. It just takes a few moves to reach c5 and then check and checkmate. So not exactly easy, I admit. The key is just to think of it and ensure that all of your pieces are going to catch up with the king, and not to hurry with it. Just take a few seconds and then you would figure it out. So I basically proved to you how to checkmate the king from the edge in generally any position. And the key here is actually just to study this position. If you understand why the knight is going to here, why the king is following like that, why the bishop is ending up there, etc., then you will quickly realize how the pieces are supposed to be coordinated when chasing down a king on the edge. Overall, the key to chasing down a king on the edge is using your king to chase it. It's going to cover 3 squares, and just use one of your light pieces to take away the other squares. Let's say over here or over there, then it's okay. So up to now, I have proved that my method works when we're doing analysis. Why don't we do it in real life? And let's challenge Stockfish on the chess. We'll play white, and I'll show you how to win. First, bring up the king. Bring up the king. Bring up the king. Notice the king. Notice that he is trying to stay in this corner because he knows it is a common trap. Now we'll keep on bringing the king. As long as the king is not getting active or something, we just bring in the king until we catch up. Now we have successfully covered these 3 squares, and this is forbidden area, so his only move would be this way. Then why don't we bring in the knight? The question, of course, is where to bring in the knight, and I think knight c6 makes sense because we also have this. We wait a move. You see, we're still taking away most of his squares. Now we take away that square. He goes this way. We get him onto the edge. Check. And everyone, I give you 3 seconds to tell me the next move. What is it? I hope you got it. The rest is literally just a demonstration of this model over here. Let me just show you it once more to ensure you remember. And then we keep on walking. We bring in the knight onto d7. And depending on where he goes in this position, we will bring back the bishop. In this case, we cut off more of his squares. He goes back, then we go this way, on a move there. We take away that square. We take away that square. We give a check. King over, give a check. Back. And just as what I mentioned, if you play 96 here, this is a stalemate, so you need to wait for the king to end up on b8. So the move here would be bishop e7. Then check, and checkmate. Done. That's how easily we beat Stockfish level 8. Now I did mention this is not the toughest of opponents, but still you could practice with it. And then if you got the hang of it, just challenge a friend. Use the method I taught. Remember this interesting little map of diagonal 1, diagonal 2, diagonal 3, danger zones, and finally how to take away the last 3 surviving squares. If you keep these in mind and you remember this model, recite the moves, then you're going to be absolutely dominating the bishop and knight fight. So that's all for today, and I'll be starting the recap series of the biggest tournament of the year for me. Please come in and enjoy. I will see you then. Bye.